Friends, before we dive in, I want to extend an invitation into something sacred that could be part of your unfolding. I'm hosting 3 Angel Reiki schools upcoming in person September 19th, November 7th, January 23rd. Those are all the dates when they start. When you join, you don't just receive one certification, you're initiated into 3 in the Angel Reiki School: mediumship, energy healing, and becoming an angel messenger yourself. This is a one-stop sanctuary where all of your spiritual gifts are activated and grown together, your unique gifts. People are called to this program for so many reasons. Some are searching for a second career that is deeply fulfilling, one where they can witness lives transformed through the creative, soul-led work that they're putting out into the world, one that starts with the Angel Reiki School. Others feel the longing to create an income that supports the life they've always dreamed of: more time freedom, the ability to take family vacations, to be there walking their children to school and be there when they get home from school, to make the memories that matter most in this life. I often remind my students to say out loud, I am a high 6-figure angel medium. Time and time again, they come back to share how claiming that vision and going through the Angel Reiki School has opened new doors to financial abundance, radiant joy, and the freedom to live life on their terms. Yes, it does take devotion to build your own business, but the Angel Reiki School is where you begin. You might not yet understand why your soul is being pulled here, but once you step in, I promise you'll feel it. The remembering, the recognition, the sense of coming home. And because the Angel Reiki School weekends are so intimate, so wonderful, alumni love coming back, that you don't have to, but they love the energy so incredibly much. They asked to come back. So we did include an alumni option where you can. But because the Angel Reiki School weekends are so intimate, half of our in-person dates sell out. So if you feel that stirring in your heart, trust it. Save your space now. I keep our groups small on purpose so that I get to know every single one of you well, and join us for one of the upcoming Angel Reiki School weekends. Remember, that's in September, November, or January. All of them start on a Friday evening at 6 p.m. and all of them end by Sunday, somewhere in between 12 to 2. You can register at theangelmedium.com/get certified. Step into the Angel Reiki School today and begin to embody your spiritual gifts to the fullest expression. Everyone who joins the Angel Reiki School gets access to both the online and in-person school. Join today, theangelmedium.com. Now, here's today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. And friends, I kid you not, I have been praying and praying and praying for Spirit to bring me somebody like today's guest. And I haven't found the right person until now. And you know that the guests that I bring on, I really don't bring you people unless I really resonate with their message, because I just don't want to pull anyone onto this podcast. I want you to have people who, you can be like, yes, I really love this. I love what they're saying. I believe in what they're saying, because we're a community. And Elizabeth, you just fit in this community. You're like family already. Elizabeth Husserl, she wrote the new book. It's called The Power of Enough: Finding Joy in Your Relationship with Money. Oh my goodness. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Julie, I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. As you were giving that introduction, I could just feel this tingling through my body, which doesn't happen in every podcast I'm in. It just feels like I'm exactly where I need to be in this conversation with you and your community today. So it is so mutual.
Thank you. Well, here's why. I think there is so much content out there, people out there who are talking about money in this way of like, let's just make more, 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 more. And when you work with presidents and CEOs, when you work with change makers behind the scenes and people who are making a huge difference in this world, you go, my gosh, there is a point at which money is really not the thing that they want at all. It's time, it's joy, it's family, it's connection, it's relationships, and money is just the tool. And I think that so many people have this misconception in their brains that like abundance just means money, manifestation just means manifesting more money. And I think if we could all see money more so the way that you do, we would find a deeper spirituality and a deeper enjoyment of our lives.
I mean, 100%, Julie. And I wrote the subtitle, right? Finding joy in our relationship to money on purpose. I know that's triggering. And people are like, wait, I don't know if I experience joy. And I think if I were to bring together those ingredients that you just said, joy, connection, family, purpose, for me, all of that is umbrellaed under this idea of what people are actually looking for is meaning.
Mm,
And if we start to really do the work of decoupling
mhm.
money from wealth and understanding wealth as that state of well-being. Money is a tool, a really important one. It's a technology, right? I work with people in money every day of my life, but I have to guide them to be like, money is one of the many resources that can build wealth, but you can feel wealthy in your life without adding one more dollar to your bank
Yeah.
account because wealth is defined so much more holistically when you really understand what that is.
hmm So walk us through because, this is another thing that I tell my audience. I feel energy, I see
Yeah,
energy palpably. And when you work with thousands and thousands of people each year, you can see, 99% of people are working through this, 50%
yeah.
of people are working through this. And I got to tell you, Elizabeth, there is only one client that I have worked with in well over 10,000 that didn't have any money stuff whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
One.
No, and I agree. I mean, I 100% agree with you. Like everyone who walks into my office, I mean, the first thing they tell me, Julie, is like, I want so much money, I don't have to think about it. Right. And so I just smile because I'm like, I've had that thought. And 99.9% of us have had that same thought. And I just smile and I tell them, okay, well, what happens if I were to tell my husband, hey, babe, I want so many of you that one of you is going to wake up every day in a good mood, right? It doesn't work that way. The key piece of being in relationship with money is actually not having so much of it that we avoid it, right? Avoidance is disconnection. The key piece in our relationship to money is understanding we're in relationship with it, and then knowing how to be in that relationship so that you don't miss the wealth by grasping so hard to money, right? And I think you said something really important, Julie. So many people think that abundance and manifestation is more about money. And coming back to, I don't need people to become the CEOs or the presidents of countries to actually know how to create wealth in your life. That is why I wrote the book, is that I think that everyone can start to become more wealthy just if we start to have a different context, framework, and experience. And I think the really key piece, it's not about accumulating, manifesting, or calling in more. It's about learning how to embody wealth, right? How do you experience wealth in your body, in all your different centers, your heart, your vitality, your mind, your soul? How do you experience wealth differently? That's what's going to change us as a society into having a different relationship to it.
So, okay, I have to tell
Let's
you this.
dive in.
Yes.
Oh, like you're good. Gets juicy.
Oh yeah, let's just dive. Let's go for it. Run a program. It's called the
Okay.
Angel Reiki School. I teach people how to do what I do and become healers and start their own businesses or develop their gifts to the max. Mediumship, angel messages, energy healing. And every time when people come in person, what I have them do is an exercise. I have them write down how much money, if you want to start your own business, how much money do you want that business to make each year? And, you collect all of them and then I read them all out. Don't put any names with them.
Hmm.
And it's just wild because some people come in and they say, I want my business to make $1 million a year, $500,000 a year. And then some people say $60,000 a year, $40,000 a year. And I show people that's all your money mindset. That is
Hmm.
what you believe is possible for yourself. Now, what's different between your gift and your gift? You're both trained the same way. You both have equally talented, skilled resources within. You're both equally talented. But one person believes that they can have $1 million business a year, and one
Hmm.
person believes that they can have a $40,000 a year business. Talk me through how you started to
Yeah.
notice like your own hangups and your own
Yeah.
stories with money and how you shifted that.
Yeah, and I'll actually use that example, Julie, because if I were, co-leading that workshop with you, I would ask people the second question, right after you have them write that dollar amount is like, okay, great, you wrote your dollar amount. What is the first thing you would say to money if you walked into the room, right? What's the first thing you hear when you start to channel it as a spiritual partner? Because I think to answer your question, the hangups are in that internal conversation that we have with money, right? It's not just the money mindset of like, oh, do I think I'm worthy enough of that dollar? Times why it's hard to connect to a numbers because it feels so abstract. Money can feel really abstract to a lot of people. You're like, sure, I'll say $1 million. I don't know what that really means, right? Someone could say that. But if you get them talking about their relationship, what's the first thing they would say to it? You get to the core of what's right at that root.
Beautiful soul, I just want to take a moment and say I am so excited to share something truly sacred with you. This October, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we'll gather for the Women's Retreat. 3 days of deep rejuvenation, angelic connection, and soul remembrance. If you've been feeling disconnected, unsure of your future, or longing for something more, this retreat was created just for you. Imagine stepping away from the weight of daily life into an energetic sanctuary where you're held, supported, and guided back to the truth of who you are. Here you'll laugh, release, and reconnect with your soul's deepest yearnings. This is your time to reconnect with your angels and awaken to the next chapter of your journey. And because I never want finances to stand in the way of a retreat, I've created a scholarship option just for this retreat. If your heart is called, this space, friends, I promise it's awaiting just for you. Come join us at theangelmedium.com/retreat. Say yes to your soul, say yes to your angels, say yes to this retreat. Questions? Email me at julie@theangelmedium.com. And now, here we go, back into the show.
So I've had people who will push the computer screen away, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there is something there that is edgy. Did you feel smothered by someone in money? Did you feel manipulated, right? So there's a lot to touch base. I have people who lean into the screen, Julie, and they're like, money. Where have you been my whole life, right? Or money. I want more of you. And you're like, you're more of the kind of anxious attachment style, right? I have people who go blank and are like, I wouldn't even know what to say to you, money, because I don't know how you work. And so I think that's the key question is what would you say to money will give you so much insight into their relational style with it and where their blocks are. And I a lot of times will ask them, Julie, the follow-up question is like, who does that sound like, right? Who do you actually feel like you're having a conversation with? Was it a parent? Is that how you treat your spouse? Is it how you treat your best friend? And you start to be like, oh, a lot of our relationship style is reflected in our relationship to money. It's the
Fascinating.
fastest way to go deep to the core.
Okay, so I noticed some parallels between your work and my work when I was reading this book. And, when I am teaching people how to connect with their intuition, when you first start talking with your angels, when you first start talking with loved ones on the other side, it feels funny at first. It feels like, am I making this up? Like, really, what is happening? But you have to work through that discomfort. And in the same way, you really ask people to talk to money, have a relationship with the money. And so let's back up a little bit and just explain, like, what does that look like in an everyday scenario? What does that mean?
Yeah. And so, I love that you bring in this piece around loved ones, right? Because I truly treat money as if it were a family member. So if that's the easiest way to think about it, right? And so it's like you have pictures of your family around your house, your favorite vacations. I actually have framed bills around my house, and I say hello to money all the time, Julie. I'm like, hey, money, great to see you there. Oh, yeah, that was the $2 bill that my dad gave me. That's a $50 bill. That's whatever. Like, that's different currency. And so I treat it like a family member first and foremost because I recognize I'm in relationship with it, good or bad, right? Sometimes we fight, sometimes we're super close, but I'm not turning my back towards it. Then the second piece is much like we all know a relationship isn't going to work if we don't spend quality time with the people we loved, right? And when you start to sit down and have these conversations with money, I'm like you, Julie. I've had thousands of conversations with money and clients. Money's biggest gripe is like, I feel freaking taken advantage of, right?
Ooh.
People want me to show up in all these ways and do all these things. And no one asked me my opinion. No one asked me if I like this. No one and money, it becomes a really big advocate and kind of like an asset to your team if you start to include it because it wants to feel included. It often has really good opinions for you, and it often can tell you if you're kind of going in one direction you need to veer. And so what I tell people, if that is too much of a stretch, much like you probably tell people talking to angels or people on the other side might be a little bit of a stretch, we all have a part of ourselves that pays checks, writes checks, pays bills, balances, whatever, like does our monthly spend. So if you can talk to the part of you that wears the money pants in the relationship, right? Because I bet you that part has something to say. And so I think the framework is one, to be like, oh, I'm in a relationship. Two, you need to spend quality time with this entity, this energy, this person you're in relationship with. And then three, this is not a monologue. This is not a let me tell you, money, what I think of you. This is more like, hey, you have something to say. And it's amazing. And I'm happy to give you some of my real life kind of like experiences with this conversation because it's been life changing.
Yes, please go for it.
So I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you like my first one and then a recent one that I just had. So my first
Love it.
one, 26, I learned this. It's a Gestalt chair exercise, right? So if anyone who's been in therapy, it's the empty chair exercise. You put money on a chair in front of you, right? And like I'm describing, you literally have a time to just like emotionally share what's on your chest. Money gets a chance to speak back. So I'm in a workshop, right, in grad school. They share about this exercise. We all feel resistance because I'm like, oh my God, inner groan. Am I really going to do this? But I sat down and I did it. And oh my gosh, Julie, like what came out of my mouth was like, God damn it, money. I have hung up my shingle. I have such an amazing work to offer people, and you're not showing up. And money's like, whoa, Elizabeth, back up. You are holding on to me too tight. You are trying to be an entrepreneur. The reality is both of your parents were W-2, right? They got a paycheck. No one has taught you how to be an entrepreneur. I get it. It's hard. It's different. That's not my fault. How about you take out to lunch the 3 most successful people you know, ask them how they got started. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, you actually gave me an idea. B, you're telling me to take responsibility for the things that aren't going well in my life. And then 3, you're saying, hey, you can solve this and I will be right there with you. So that was an eye-opening moment, Julie, where I realized I was holding on to money much like I was, I would nag at my boyfriends at the time. I'm like, you're not showing up. And so when I told my boyfriend, he's like, oh my God, I feel so understood. Me and money get it, right? So I started to understand that was just my relationship style. And I started for a year, Julie, to literally every morning I'd have my cup of tea and I would sit down and have these conversations with money, and I'd go left and I'd go right and he'd be like, talk to this dude. And I just started to feel that instead of money being an adversary, it was my ally.
Mm.
And that was at 26. Fast forward, I've been in financial advising for 20 years. I do this for a living. I love what I do. And I was on my book tour, right? And earlier in the year, we all know that the stock market went through a pullback, right? And we're always, we saw that the stock market pulled back, and we're always going to go through cycles with the stock market. And I was like, God damn it, money. I don't have time for this, right? Because when you go down is when my phone starts ringing. All my clients start calling. They need some hand holding. And I'm like, I got people to see, book talks to do. I just didn't have time for it. And so I sat down. To have this conversation with money. I'm like, money, I don't have time for this. Right? Like, stop screwing around. And money's like, whoa. You can't control me, right? We've had this conversation before. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go down. So what's at the core of your discomfort? And I was like, you know what, money? I'm feeling responsible. And money was like, responsible for what? I'm like, I'm feeling responsible for my clients' emotions. And money's like, remember, Elizabeth, you are not responsible for their emotions. You need to show up and respond too. I was like, that's great advice, money. I feel so much better. And so I just wanted to give like 2 bookmarks of like my first conversation with money when I was railing my fist at it, and then my conversation with money 20 years into it, where we have a deep, intimate relationship and we still get at each other at times. It is my responsibility, Julie, to make the time to talk to it. Right?
Ooh,
it's my responsibility to take ownership for what's mine and let money do its own thing in relationship to me.
There's an intuition to everything in life. I believe that on the other side in heaven, there's places that we study, we learn about different things. You could say Mozart, Beethoven, they studied at the School of Music on the other side before they came through here. And there's an intuition behind money. There are angels behind money.
There's archetypes behind money.
Explain that to people who don't understand what archetypes are.
Archetypes is a collective pattern, right, that we can embody. And so when I think of money archetypes, right, there's the innocent money archetype that gets overwhelmed by money, sticks their head in the sand, right? There's the warrior archetype that is like, I'm just going to go drive over anyone and everyone to go make more money, right? There's the money martyr who is just like, I'm going to just give my money away, right? And then feels resentment. And so I think to your point, right, and there's the money alchemist who knows that that 1% client, that 1 out of 10,000 probably was connected to a money alchemist, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think part of it is that you're right. There's so much resource available to us on both sides of the realms. But in the money realm, not only is it about you connecting to your relationship to money, it's about healing your ancestral relationship to money and the baggage they had. And it's about connecting to the patterns that will channel you towards creating the life you want to create.
1,000,000,000%. What you said earlier, you said, I talked to money and money told me to take these 3 people out to lunch and ask them how they did what they did. I find that when I'm working with people stop themselves at that point and they go, God, that is not money. That is not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for the way to go make money, right? And really, when the intuition comes in, when God comes in, when money comes in, it's showing you a path. Yes. And that path is often very, very simple. And it seems very small and insignificant, but actually it is the way. And we can't find our way unless we take action upon that and move towards it.
Yes. And I want to come back. I mean, that is so true. Yeah. And it comes back to one of the first things you said, Julie, is that most people are looking for something deeper than just making money. They're looking for that meaning. And so one of the tools that I talk about in the book, that's a free resource on my website, is that wealth mandala, right? That idea.
Yes. I want to talk about this. Yes.
That wealth is a bigger map, because I think to your point, and I can talk about it in more detail and the different needs that it touches, but it's almost like we think our life is headed in one direction. You probably receive and channel this information that says, hey, look this way. Hey, look that way. And when we allow ourselves to receive that information, we're going to start touching these other areas in our wealth mandala that light us up, that create wealth, right? And so what I want is for people to raise the gaze and be like, okay, wealth is not just financial stability. That's an important slice of the pie, but it is one slice of the pie.
So what are the other slices of the pie?
So the other slices of the pie are safety, physical health, freedom, purpose, understanding, participation, connection, belonging, curiosity, leisure, and touch. And then there's two slices of the pie, Julie, that are create your own adventure, right? For someone, it's going to be transcendence, right? For someone, it's going to be creativity. For someone, it's going to be service, right? I don't pretend to have one design for everyone, but this pie, this wealth mandala, is based on the science of human needs, right? That we know through Maslow, and then it was expanded on another economist, Manfred Max Neef. And the idea is that human beings have universal needs. The way we satisfy the needs are unique and personal, right? And so if we just throw out the window, we're all needy, right? Let's own these needs. That's part of what we came to do together, is to discover different way to satisfy these needs. But we get to really be creative in how we design the strategies that satisfy them. And so to your point, right? Maybe someone's receiving a message and like, wait a second, that's not what I came for. Or that's not what I wanted to hear, but maybe that message takes them to touch upon some of these other needs they didn't even realize were lacking. And it lights up their wealth mandala, their experience of wealth, their ability to embody wealth at a much deeper level.
What you were saying kind of reminded me of, I went to a chiropractor once and he said, did you know that, when you take aspirin or something for a headache, the headache goes away, but then you feel where the pain is other places in your body because your brain actually can't register more than one pain point at a time, or maybe it's one or two. And it seems the same with people as they are creating and building their lives. They think to themselves, ooh, I'm going to go after this. And this is going to give me everything that I desire. And then they get to that point and they're like, well, I'm still the same old person. And you haven't fulfilled those other areas of your life. And I'm really don't see it as a place where we're supposed to get to this point where we're like, okay, done with life, nothing more here to accomplish. It's so fun. It's the journey and having fun with money. We used to kind of live in this mindset where women would just be like, oh my God, she talked about money. But it was the women talking about money that made me go, all right, she's got a couple $1 million in retirement. Maybe I could do that too. Mm-hmm. Okay, this friend's talking to me about stocks. She's investing in stocks. Maybe I could do that too. Oh, okay, this person's got a multi-million-dollar business. Maybe I could achieve that too. And it opens us. Instead, I think some people see it and they close down, like, I can't do that, or I'm jealous of that. But really, the angels say every time you feel that, it's an opening and a doorway energetically that you can step through. It's the angels showing you through other people in your life what's possible for your life.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as you talk through that, Julie, I'm like, yeah, it's almost like we're channeling and calling in. There's a money angel.
Yeah, there is. There are.
There's exactly, and they're there. And so whatever form you want to be in, but it's like, I'm a financial advisor, and so I sit down and I do numbers and projections all day long. But I wrote this book without any of that traditional financial knowledge because I wanted to give a different doorway in, which came through relationship, right? Because I agree, how many women have walked into my office, or I'll have like a couple and they'll default to the other gender. I'm like, no. Let's find what your language is around money, right? And oftentimes bringing that relationship component, people light up because like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I'm in a relationship. I'm not necessarily always perfect, and that's okay, but I know how to be in a relationship. So then bring that to money and start to break down those questions in bite-sized questions. Like, you know what, money? I've always wanted to have a stock portfolio. I don't even know where to start, right? Start to have a conversation with money. What guidance would it give you to start and take one step in that direction?
Mm-hmm. The other thing that's wildly fascinating as I was reading through the book is the mandala itself is a shape, right?
Yeah.
And when I wrote my book, also called Angels and Awakening, like the podcast, I wrote about Archangel Metatron and how he uses shapes, almost like the path of your life. You know, what are those called? It's like a spiritual thing where you can go to a spiritual site and sometimes they have these like paths that you walk, but
Oh,
as
the
you walk,
labyrinth.
yes, the labyrinth. It reminds me a lot of that. Like the shape of your life, and everybody has one, is really meant to be that journey of coming home to ourselves, becoming ourselves, being ourselves, our soul self. Explain, does that fit into your kind of take on the money mandala?
Yeah, 100%. And what I would say is that, like I described, so think of it this way for those who haven't actually seen it. So the mandala is a circle and it has like
Mhm.
these spokes on a wheel. So, or it looks like 12 slices of a pie, right? And so when I work with clients, what I do, Julie, is I say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 10 being like, I'm feeling really satisfied in this area of my life, participation, right? Or purpose. And so you color that sliver, that slice of the pie all the way to the top. And maybe there's some areas like leisure or touch that I'm feeling more lack in or poverty in. You could color it very little. And then what I'd like to tell people, Julie, is that take a step back from it once you've colored it. And I always tell people, like, have like a gaze, a soft gaze, as if you were staring at a flower, right? And
Mhm.
if you think of it this way, petals are not perfect, and yet they're beautiful. Right. And so it's really being like, okay, my life isn't perfect. That's never the intention, but it's beautiful as it is. Where are those areas that the petals are a little more filled out? What's working there? What are the areas that my petals are a little more shriveled? What can I bring in terms of awareness and resource, right, to find a little bit more balance in the shape? But it's a fluid shape. And to your point, if you're like, ooh, all my petals are feeling full, then you start to grow deep. You go down into the roots, right? And so it's like this five-dimensional shape that you kind of embody and live into. But the mandala is just a doorway in to giving you a visual cue of where you are.
I want to go into more in your book, but I have to ask you this question because it's just on my mind. Um, okay, so I know that you can't like say exactly what's going to happen, but you're a very intuitive person. There's been so much. I love history buff. If you look at 1900 to like 1930, there's been a lot of correlation between 2000, like the year 2000 and where we are today. And at every turn where we could have hit bigger blips, they were more muted. They didn't turn out to be what we went through 100 years ago. I think we are, as a collective, working through some things that would have turned into world wars before, or like bigger things, and we're muting it right now, even though it might not seem like it. Financially, though, it does feel like as we're approaching 2029, 100 years after the Great Depression started, you can feel this trepidation in people's hearts of like, crap, here we go. We're the stock market is really high right now. People are saying it's like at a 5.3, and when the .com was, it was like a 5.1. The bubble burst. What do you think? Because what I am seeing intuitively is that I think we're going to hit a more minor kind of setback. I think it's going to raise right back up, but before the end of, before hitting 2030, we're going to see a more major correction, but it's going to come right back around. I don't see us hitting like another Great Depression or anything like that.
Well, and in the reality is that even if we did, Julie, we would
Mm-hmm.
survive it. Right. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really important piece because there's a way in which, like, as you're describing that, like, I can feel the PTSD in my body and I wasn't alive in 1929. You know what I mean? But I think there's a way in which, like, that's the ancestral, the epigenetics component, is that we
Yeah.
can feel the ancestors that went through those crashes. For my grandfather, he went through World War II. He was, an Austrian Jew survivor who had to leave his homeland. So I think part of what you're also describing is unprocessed anxiety that we have in our bodies around market cycles. So that's the first thing that I would say. And it's our responsibility to continue to like digest. And the second thing I would say is that, there's been a way in which human creativity has created a certain level of resilience that we have seen reflected in the stock market, right? And that's really important to note, because as you start to see kind of which companies and which industries have done well in which different waves, it's kind of, where is creativity moving towards right now? We're in an AI boom, for example, right? And we've seen some companies who've lost value because they have phased out in terms of their relevance and what they offer. And so people ask me all the time, do I think that the stock market is going to be one day wiped out? My answer is no, because of human creativity, right? And I think the waves we go through are big. And I think we are going through a big restructuring. And I don't think we actually even know what it's going to look like. And it has to do with what are, how are jobs and professions and things going to change with the onset of AI. I mean, I have a
$1,000,000,000%. Yeah.
and I have to, and I feel like I'm in a good relationship with it. I'm not afraid of it, but I know it's going to change. And so, and what I tell people when it comes to finance, because we can never quite predict exactly when that's going to happen, you diversify your strategies, right? You have the money that's in the market that, will go up and down. And if it goes down, that's the time when you stay put, do not pull out. And then there's the market there's the money that you might have in cash, because when there's a dip, best time to invest, right? And so we can never, no, all I can tell you is we will go through these cycles again and again and again. You can have strategies to be in those cycles. And that kind of releases a little bit of the anxiety of when it's going to happen. Be like, okay, if we're in a down cycle, this is what I'm doing. If we're in an up cycle, this is what I'm doing. And you just start to create, I mean, similar to like our everyday, right? You wake up some days happier and some days not as happy. And I know I have strategies for both days, right? And so it's the same thing with the stock market. It's a lot easier to do, Julie, to have these strategies written out when we're not there. You know what I mean? So this is the time to think through, okay, if the markets were down, if I lost my job, how would I adjust? What are those dials I would turn up and turn down so that I
love that.
So I have a contingency plan.
Well, and that's the only way to really bring your inner self peace and security, is to go, okay, let me think through that. If we did hit a recorrect, how do I not freak out because we know that it's going to go right back up? Or what would I do job wise if this, if that? I think that, my most successful clients do think through those things kind of in advance. And it's not like a put down for anybody else. It's just like a strategy, a tool that you can use. Thinking through it brings peace.
And I would say, Julie, start small. Like if you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to designate $500, $100 so that the next market pullback, it goes in. Great. That's what you do. And notice that small step creates agency. And that's the most important piece. It doesn't have to be a big dollar amount. It could literally be, I have $100 set aside. When the market goes down, I know what to do. Right?
One more piece on this, because I feel that there are a lot of people, myself included. My grandmother was born in 1933, that do have that tie to that specific time period, 1929. For those people who are feeling a lot of that anxiety in anticipation because they're so highly empathic, in addition to what you've just said, what else can they do to be like, okay, take this pressure off my chest?
Well, I mean, I think, to your point of what your expertise in this world is, Julie, start having these conversations with those family members, right? And so, for me, in writing this book, I would have deep conversations with my grandfather who's deceased and be like, okay, why is it that scarcity was passed down my lineage? Why is it still in my body when we have enough? Right. And so I had to do my work around scarcity and decouple it from market corrections. And so I think that's the first thing I would say is Start talking to the ancestors. Is there that's my word for it,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But is there unprocessed grief, right? Are we feeling super sad at everything we lost? What were the loss of opportunity? We have to work through it. Start talking to your ancestors and be like, whoa, where did you show resilience? Wow. Check that out. I come from a lineage of resilience, right? Right? Because if we're having this conversation, if someone is listening to us, Julie, because their ancestors survived and they're here on this planet at this time, right?
Yeah. Oh, so sorry. I interrupted you. I'm just so excited because I get to talk to somebody about this, and there's so much that I get to see every day working with people. Here's one of the biggest things that I feel is a hang up with folks is people in their ancestry, their lineage, who expected to get into a time when they were in retirement where they would just have that certainty, that security. And that's when the bigger swings hit, right? Financially within our country. I think about, my grandparents retiring, and going through 2007, 2008, shortly thereafter, and swimming in the pool with my grandfather out in the backyard and him being like, we lost $80,000 in the stock market. And just like, there's a time when we're anticipating in our lives, okay, if I just make it to this point in my life, everything's going to be okay. And I think that people have a harder time when they're like, man, it's not that way. We don't ever have that safety, that security. You could get to that point, and that's when the big swing hits. And that's hard.
Yeah, and so let's really get clear here. One of my biggest issues with my industry is the fact that we call investment securities. Right? That is a huge misnomer. And I'm like, doesn't anyone else hear that? Because we give our power away, Julie. Right? And I think what you really need to take responsibility for is like, okay, can I find that sense of security inside myself, move through life with the plan I have, knowing that life will throw me curveballs. This is not money doing something at you, right? This is that we just face these curveballs. And I think the reality is, I hear your grandfather's voice, and he probably did lose at 80,000. Now, did he take his money out and he made that loss real? You know what I mean?
No, he gained it back.
Exactly. And, and ultimately, when you're at that place for retirement, you're taking a percentage of your portfolio, right? You're not taking all of it out, and depending how it's allocated, it should be able to do these swings with time. That's part of like all the simulations we do. And so I think part of it is that we can't let ourselves be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so many people live under the guise of being a money victim. And the opposite archetype of the victim is the wounded healer, right? The person who has gone through the human experience and knows hardship, but has found that resilience to get to the other side and can be like, oh yeah, I know that sliver of humanity. You know that sliver of humanity through your grandfather's conversations. And you're like, okay, I don't want to do that, but you can't go the opposite extreme of them living in fear.
Right.
Right? And so instead of becoming the ultimate hoarder, like that's not going to solve it either. You have to learn how to live life to its fullest. And I think a big piece, Julie, when I'm coaching clients through the Wealth Mandala, as we go through all the different slices in the pie, I have to ask them, what is your monetary strategy? So for example, physical health. Someone might say, I'm ready to hire a personal trainer. Great. But equally important is, what is your non-monetary strategy? How are you going to address physical health if you had not a dime to spend? Be like, well, you know what? I'm going to go for a run around the block. Great. You know what I mean? And that's where you find financial agency, is being able to build wealth, not always depending on money. Because if not, you're in a codependent relationship with it.
Say that again. That is just like, boom. Aha, mic drop.
Most of us are in codependent relationships with money. We want money to solve and fill all of our needs.
And make life perfect, where you don't have another worry in the entire world.
Exactly. Imagine, Julie, if you said that to your partner, they would start to inch their way out of the room. They're like, that's way too much pressure. We
Yes.
give our power away. And so you need to know how to satisfy every single one of your need in a non-monetary way.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you also don't have monetary strategies. I love massages. So in my little touch slice of the pie, definitely try to get a massage at least once a quarter. But equally important, I have to go and say, hey, tell my husband, I need a 15-second hug right now. And he always kind
Yeah.
of like, at that 5 second, I could feel him like wanting to get out of it. I'm like, stay. I need this 15 seconds. I have to ask for it, even though it's not necessarily what he would want, but he knows it's important for me and it's non-monetary.
Yeah. Well, and I work with those clients who have more money than God that they can spend in this lifetime, and they still wake up and they want purpose. And
Yeah.
they want a reason to be here, and they want to understand why they're here. Because even if you had, and I hope everybody that's listening right now just imagines this or just takes this in their next meditation session. Imagine waking up tomorrow, you have more money than you will ever need in your entire life for every possible need that you'll ever have or want. You still have to wake up tomorrow and be here. What do
Yeah.
you want to do? How
Yeah.
would you spend your time? Who would you want to share your heart with, your time with? What would you want to do within this world? When you pass away, what legacy do you want to leave behind? How do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
Because that's what those folks are really thinking about once they get to that point, which is why you see so many celebrities and presidents and CEOs that once they have achieved traditional success, they all fall back to spirituality. They all come back.
They're looking
Yeah.
for meaning. And I think, that's why I wrote the book, Julie, because my premise is, why do we have so much, right, in this country? Why do we have so much and yet we feel poor? Right? And I think it's a different type of poverty, but it's a real poverty. And so, I tell people you can like get there so much faster, the sense of wealth, by understanding what defines wealth and how you design it. Right? It's like, you don't have to wait to amass millions. I mean, by all means, go amass millions. But equally important is making sure you're feeling all the slices of wealth as you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I want to do a course with you where we could walk everybody through this. And
Me too. I love to collaborate. So I'm
yes. Oh my gosh. And I want to have you back on the podcast more. One of the other things that I've been channeling and kind of tuning into that I got to get your take on is crypto's been around. I think that we're going to come into it more. It's very, very scary for older generations. And I think even my generation, because we don't fully understand it. I think the stock market will always have a very big place, but how do you see cryptocurrency coming in, and how do we speak to a money and have a relationship with a money that is cryptocurrency when we really don't understand it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I do have to say, from a compliance standpoint, I actually can't even talk too much about crypto because it's
Okay.
still not regulated. And so
Okay.
I do need to say that. But I think what I would hold is we're in the, I want to say we're still in the early stages of it. And so, like anything new, it reminds me a lot of like the digital revolution of when the internet came on board, right? And we had to understand, or even AI, right? And so I think what's going to happen is that, not all AI companies will make it. Not all digital currencies will make it, right? Not all internet providers will make it. And so that's what feels scary, is like, wait a second, did I choose the right one? How much should I put it in? And so if you want just a rule of thumb, anything that I would consider more of a speculative investment, keep it to 5% of your portfolio, right? If it's something that you could wake up one day and say, hey, I lost it, but I'm going to be okay, that's the right amount. If you put in too much that if you lost it, it's going to have a really negative impact on your portfolio, that's too much, right? But I think, and then as you invest, again, start to have a conversation with it, whatever you choose, whatever digital currency you choose, or whatever company, like start to understand it more. And I think that's our responsibility.
100%. Okay, so we're gonna do more together if you're up for it, Elizabeth.
I love this.
Yes, I want you to tell everybody where they can find the book, where they can find you. And you're so intuitive. If there's one more like thing that money is intuitively saying to you, that message wants to come out from money to everybody
Yes.
listening,
Oh,
what
I
is
just
that
got
message?
chills. I'm going to start with the message. I think the message I'm hearing Money say to every single one is that you can be satisfied in your life if you start paying attention to what satisfies you. And the easiest way to do that, Julie, is that for just take a journal and do a 30-day satiation challenge, which is for 30 days at the end of the day, write down your 3 top things that satisfy you. So for example, Julie, you will make my list tonight, right? This conversation was deeply satisfying. And over 30 days, right, you then take a moment, look back, read through all of them in one sitting and see like, what are the patterns? What do I naturally know how to do that is satisfying? And money, it's like it's smiling behind me, Julie, because it's like, yes, the more we take agency and responsibility on what satisfies us, money's like, ooh, I feel lighter. I feel freer. Let's have fun together, right? Because a lot of times money's like, hey, you don't make this fun either. So how am I supposed to show up with joy? And so I think the more we start to take responsibility and agency by finding what brings us meaning, the more money wants to show up and be like, I want to participate in that.
Love that so much, Elizabeth. Don't forget to tell everybody
Yeah.
where to find you and where to find your beautiful book.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, elizabethhusserl.com. So that's Husserl. And there's a link to the book. You can buy it at your favorite book provider. There's a ton of free resources there that you can use that accompany the book. I have a Substack called The Art of Enough. So join me there. And Instagram, Elizabeth Husserl. I post a lot. In any of those places, you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And friends, we are going to do more with Elizabeth. Beautiful souls, before we close, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, for listening, for walking this path of radiant energy oneness alongside me. Your presence means so much. If you feel called to go deeper, there are so many ways that we can journey together. The Angel Reiki School, the upcoming women's retreat, the Angel membership. In September, we begin a brand new course in the Angel membership called Clearly Hear Your Intuition. And in October, we're starting a course called Find Your Purpose in 30 Days. These are soul-shifting, life-changing offerings, and I would love to hold space for you inside them. You can join the Angel membership to receive these courses or simply purchase them on their own at theangelmedium.com/membership. Or if you want to purchase them on their own, you can go to theangelmedium.com/shop. And now let's take a moment together. I want you to take 3 deep breaths in and out. With each breath, feel love moving through you. Ask your angel the question or questions that are resting on your heart, and then listen. Their whispers arrive as intuition, as knowing, as peace. Friends, if you long to hear your angels more clearly, don't forget I've got a course for this coming up in September where you can really start to hear your intuition more clearly. I'll walk you through step by step. Until next time, friends, breathe, trust, and know that you are never alone. Your angels are always, always, always with you. Love you.